right, welcome to Mayfair Block of the Month. This is your first block for month 1. This is the Waltz Block, and we're going to start with flying geese. These are the colors that you're going to be doing. This is fabric 1 and fabric 8. This is fabric 9 and fabric 11. I'm going to show you really quickly how to do flying geese, and this is actually from next month. You're going to have a 5.5-inch square that you're going to cut into quarters, and then you're going to have 3 1/8 inch squares that you're going to be cutting in half to make these triangles. Going to sew one side on to the large triangle. You're going to flip that over and you're going to press towards the large triangle. We're going to sew this second side on, and then after sewing you're going to press to the out so your seams on the inside chase each other. Once this is done, we're going to square them, and I'm going to square using my square on square tool. I'm going to line up the center dot with the point of the triangle. I'm going to measure down my diagonals there. The lines are all lined up. I'm going to trim 2 sides. Then I'm going to flip that over, use my other ruler, and I'm going to note where that 1/4 inch line is on the top because I need a 1/4 inch from the tip to the edge. I'm going to line up with my 4.5 by 2.5, and that's going to be my second cut. So that's how you square your flying geese, right? Because all these are large and then we trim down. We are going to be making 4 in this colorway, 4 in this colorway, and then we're going to sew them so that the dark is on top. So you'll have 4 of these. Okay, so that's your first step. Now we're going to do our half square triangles. These are done with 3 1/4 inch squares. We are going to have 2 different half square triangles that we're going to do. This is fabric 2 and fabric 4. And this is fabric 2 and fabric 5. When we do a half square triangle, we are going to put 1 square on top of the other. We're going to mark the center. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch from each side of that line, and then we're going to cut that in half. So once that is sewn and cut, each square makes 2 half square triangles. We're going to trim the half square triangles to 2.5 inches. You're going to line up the diagonal, trim and trim to make all your pieces. You're going to be making 4 of these and 8 of these. Okay, 4 and 8, because we're going to be putting together these blocks. Now, when I put together these blocks, what I do is I look very carefully at the picture and I line up the pieces that I need to make 1 unit. Okay, and then I lay all my pieces on top before I sew them together, so they all come out identical. Now, when I sew these together, I'm going to start from the middle. I'm going to fold this over, sew these 2 units together, fold this over, sew these 2 units together, and then when I press, I'm going to press towards the identical block. So when I sew my final units together, those seams butt. And that way you get a nice little join landmark in the middle to make these blocks. Okay, so if you look on the back, these 2 are opposite, and then they butt together to do that middle seam. These should end up 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And then our last unit for this block is the square in a square. The middle block is cut 3 3/8, and this is a 3 1/4 inch square cut in half on the diagonal. When doing the center block here, you're going to fold and mark the centers of the sides of your square. I then take a triangle, I fold it in half, make that crease. I line up that crease right in the middle, and I let that flap open so that that is a straight seam. And I'm going to sew 2 sides. I'm going to press those open. After I press those open, I'm going to crease this center of the triangle of the square, and using the same method, folding, laying this on here, flapping that open. So I lined these triangles up on the center of the square before sewing open. This is a good time when you're doing these to check your 1/4 inch seam, because if you have a good 1/4 inch seam on this square, when you square this up, I use my 4.5 inch square section here. And if you notice on this, I'm going to borrow this piece of paper. You have this dotted line going horizontal and vertical, and it ends right, leaving you a 1/4 inch allowance. These black dots should end up right in the corners of your square as closely as possible. And that's how you know you're getting a good 1/4 inch seam. If these line up very nicely, you know that you're sewing straight, that your initial square was cut correctly as a square. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be close, because we do want that 1/4 inch seam all the way around this block, so that when you sew this in the center of your 9 patch, that you don't lose the corners of your center block there. Okay, this is what this tool is great for. If you do not have this ruler and you just have a regular ruler, hopefully your ruler is like mine and it has a 1/4 inch marking on the edge. You want to line up the 1/4 inch here and the 1/4 inch on the top, and you want a diagonal line. Like, this is a really nice ruler because, again, if you have this ruler, it works with this. If I have the 1/4 inch on the right side, a 1/4 inch on the top, there is a diagonal line that runs right along what should be this diagonal place for that nice square cut. You can also take a piece of tape on your ruler, depending on which ruler you're using, tape a diagonal line here, and leave that for future use when you square up your square in a square, because we'll be making a whole bunch of these on this quilt. Okay, 1/4 inch from the edges, and you want to make sure that that is on a diagonal. Okay, so this is the center. We are then going to take our corners, and the corners are set up with the light on the outside and the blue on the inside. And then our flying geese pieces are going to go facing in. There we go. And we have our first block waltz for Mayfair.